lot of places to quite a few.
We have, but it's been wonderful, and everybody's been very kind and welcoming.
Well,
It's always a pleasure to be here, and always lovely to be back in New York again.
well, we brought you to a place where you would feel at home.
This wonderful library.
The New York Public Library.
Somewhere between that quiet refusal and the vows being spoken, a line was reportedly crossed, one that would not stay contained to a single afternoon in Gloucestershire, because what actually unfolded once the cameras were gone, once the guests went home, once the doors closed behind the family, is the part of this story that insiders say very few people were ever meant to hear. Prince William has never raised his voice in public, not once, not during a crisis, not during a scandal, not even when the cameras caught him mid-argument with the people closest to him. That is precisely why what happened inside a quiet Gloucestershire wedding this past June has royal insiders more unsettled than almost anything else this year. Because according to the sources now speaking out, William did not need to raise his voice at all. He was, in the words of one insider, simply furious. And Queen Camilla, the woman who spent over a decade fighting to be accepted by a country that once despised her, is reportedly the reason why. This is the story of a wedding that was never supposed to make headlines. Peter Phillips, the low-profile son of Princess Anne, marrying a National Health Service pediatric nurse named Harriet Sperling. No titles, no fanfare. The kind of quiet family event the monarchy usually handles without a single ripple. Except this time, something went wrong before the ceremony even began. Something involving jewelry that had been worn by generations of royal women. Something that, according to multiple sources close to the family, Camilla allegedly refused to allow.
But Roy and Nika in the Sunday Times reporting over the weekend that the Prince of Wales makes of his olive branch, well, not much. She writes, "He won't like it."
And somewhere in that refusal, insiders say, a war that had been simmering quietly for years finally broke into the open. Hi viewers, quick question before we go further. If someone deliberately embarrassed a person you loved on their wedding day, would you speak up in the moment or wait and deal with it privately? Drop a yes or no in the comments. We want to see where everyone stands, because that is exactly the choice William reportedly faced. And the way he responded may be the clearest sign yet of what kind of king he intends to be. If this is the kind of story you want broken down properly, piece by piece, with nothing skipped and nothing exaggerated, this channel is where you want to be. Hit subscribe now, because the next few minutes are going to change how you see this entire family. Sources close to the situation describe a tension in that reception room so sharp that guests noticed it without knowing why. Whispers passed between staff, glances exchanged across tables. Something had shifted, and almost no one outside a small circle understood what. What we do know, according to the reporting that has since emerged, is this. Camilla allegedly blocked Harriet Sperling from wearing any piece from the royal jewelry vault, including items connected to Princess Anne herself, the groom's own mother. To some, it may sound like a small matter of protocol. To William, according to insiders, it was something else entirely. A message, a statement about power, and about who gets to decide what this family looks like going forward. And the timing could not have been worse, because William and Peter Phillips have been close since childhood, long before crowns and titles ever came between them. This was not some distant cousin's wedding. William was simply attending out of obligation. This was personal, which is exactly why, according to one insider, William was disgusted that Camilla would try to stir up trouble on his cousin's wedding day, just to show off her power. Before the wedding day even began, according to people close to the family, whispers had already started moving through Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace alike. Not whispers about the bride, and not about the groom. Whispers about jewelry, about who would be allowed to wear what, and who would decide it. Peter Phillips is not a working royal. He gave up any formal role in the family years ago, choosing a quieter life outside the spotlight his cousins have never been able to escape. But he remains close to the family in the way that matters most, through blood and through history, and closest of all to William, a friendship that reportedly stretches back to childhood summers at Balmoral and Sandringham, long before either of them understood what their lives would eventually become. So when Peter chose to marry Harriet Sperling, a pediatric nurse with no royal background and no interest in titles, the wedding was expected to be exactly what it looked like on the surface: small, warm, uncomplicated. The wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling was supposed to be remembered for one thing only: a quiet family celebration, far from the noise of royal politics. Instead, according to multiple reports now circulating, it became something else entirely.
They also have a magic way of bringing people together, with their ability to transcend any barrier.
On this 250th anniversary, what is your message to Americans?
Well, I'd like to say keep reading.
That's my message too.
A single afternoon where 3 separate fractures inside the House of Windsor were reportedly exposed within the same few hours. The jewelry dispute with Camilla was only the beginning, because according to sources close to the event, William and Kate were not just distant with the Queen that day. They were reportedly distant with 2 other guests as well, cousins who have known William since childhood, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. One insider described the atmosphere between them as dreary, even by the standard of an English wedding day. According to that account, William gave Beatrice a polite kiss on the cheek upon arrival at the church, the kind of gesture required by manners rather than warmth. And from that moment on, the future king and queen reportedly kept their distance for the rest of the event. Not a scene, not a confrontation, just space, deliberately maintained, in a room full of family. To understand why that distance mattered, you have to understand what had happened only one day earlier, in a report that had nothing to do with weddings or jewelry at all. The day before the ceremony, the United Kingdom's National Audit Office released the findings of an official investigation into royal residential arrangements. This was not tabloid speculation. This was a government body examining how palace properties are funded and who benefits from them. The investigation had been prompted by revelations involving Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who had reportedly been subletting properties on the Royal Lodge estate without publicly disclosing the income, a finding that had already cast a long shadow over the family's finances. But it was what the report revealed about his daughters that reportedly sent the sharpest shock through the palace. According to the official findings, King Charles personally pays the rent for Princess Beatrice's apartment at St. James's Palace, and for Princess Eugenie's home at Kensington Palace, known as Ivy Cottage. Both women pay far below market value for properties inside 2 of the most secure and prestigious royal residences in the country, an arrangement typically reserved for working members of the family carrying out official royal duties. Neither Beatrice nor Eugenie holds that status. Neither has official royal responsibilities, and yet, according to the audit, both have continued living inside the royal footprint at a fraction of its true cost, a fact that, once public, spread quickly and unfavorably across the internet. Baroness Hodge, a former chair of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, addressed the findings publicly on Times Radio, stating that she could not understand why any member of the royal family should be permitted to benefit financially from properties tied to the crown. Her comments were not about personalities, they were about principle. But inside the palace, according to insiders, the timing could not have landed more directly on 2 women already bracing for scrutiny, because just one day later, those same 2 women walked into a family wedding already trailing headlines they never wanted, and reportedly found themselves facing a colder reception from William and Kate than they had ever experienced before. According to one insider, the reaction from William was not subtle to those who knew him well. He is said to have described the arrangement in blunt terms, calling it egregious for non-working royals to continue benefiting from resources tied to the wider institution while carrying no official responsibilities in return. Another source close to the family suggested that William believes his father needs to trim away exactly this kind of legacy privilege, describing the free housing as an easy and obvious place to start. It is worth pausing here on what is confirmed and what is alleged. The National Audit Office findings are real. The rent arrangements are real, drawn directly from an official government investigation, not from anonymous sources or tabloid claims. What remains unconfirmed, and what should be treated with appropriate caution, are the specific quotes attributed to William himself, and the claim that he is actively building a formal plan to end these arrangements once he becomes king. Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace have not addressed any of this publicly. No official statement has confirmed a purge, a plan, or a policy.
This is very much part of what he calls the unwinding of Megxit. And what's interesting is he says that this can only happen because of the king's remarkable recovery. If you believe the Royal Rota journalists when they say, my sources have just told me, no, Tom Sykes said it was just posted on the Royal Rota WhatsApp group.
But according to reporting from more established outlets, including The Times, the broader claim carries more weight than tabloid gossip alone. Sources there describe William as preparing for a full review of royal residences once he ascends the throne, driven by a desire to ensure the institution he inherits is, in his own words from an earlier interview, fit for purpose in the modern era. He has reportedly told those close to him that he intends to look under the hood of how royal housing works, examining exactly who lives where and under what terms, once the decision is finally his to make. If that account is accurate, then what happened at the Phillips wedding was not an isolated moment of coldness. It was, according to the pattern insiders describe, one visible piece of something far larger. A future king, reportedly signaling, quietly and without confrontation, exactly which parts of this family he intends to protect, and which parts he intends to let go. For Beatrice and Eugenie, the stakes are reportedly personal, in a way that goes beyond money. Neither woman is in any real financial need. Beatrice, a private equity analyst married to property developer Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, and Eugenie, an art director married to marketing executive Jack Brooksbank, both maintain comfortable lives, entirely independent of royal support. According to one insider, the properties themselves are used for little more than occasional stays in London. The issue was never really about square footage or rent checks. According to sources close to the sisters, what frightens them is something far less tangible: the fear of being cast aside the way their own parents were, watching their place inside the family quietly erode until there is nothing left to hold on to. One insider put it plainly, describing the situation as their ultimate nightmare, the idea of losing the one thread still connecting them to an institution their father's own conduct had already placed under intense public scrutiny. Another source offered a more skeptical read, suggesting the sisters have simply continued a pattern learned early, using their royal proximity for personal benefit the same way their parents once did. Whether that characterization is fair or not, it captures something important about how this story has been received publicly. Sympathy for Beatrice and Eugenie has been limited. Many observers view the free housing not as an injustice being done to them, but as exactly the kind of unearned privilege William is reportedly determined to eliminate. And that, according to people who study the monarchy closely, is precisely the position William appears to be building for himself. Not the villain of this story, but its accountant. The one person in the family willing to ask the uncomfortable question every institution eventually has to face. Who deserves to benefit from this, and why? If you are noticing a pattern across every part of this story so far, you are not imagining it. A jewelry dispute with Camilla, a cold shoulder toward Beatrice and Eugenie, a reported plan to strip away housing perks the moment William takes the throne. 3 separate stories, 3 separate sets of sources, all converging on the same message. William is reportedly done waiting to reshape this family. He appears to be starting now, years before the crown is even his. If you want every piece of this story broken down as clearly and carefully as this one has been, make sure you are subscribed. because the palace has not commented on any of this, and when they finally do, this channel will be the first to walk you through exactly what it means. What remains unclear, and what sources say even senior aides inside the palace are still trying to determine, is how far William intends to take this. Whether the housing review is simply the first of several changes already being quietly prepared. Whether Charles will move first to avoid being seen as reactive, or whether he will resist his son's growing influence entirely. And whether Beatrice and Eugenie, the two women reportedly most exposed by all of this, will find any way to protect their place in a family that increasingly seems to be deciding, quietly and without announcement, exactly who belongs and who does not. According to multiple sources, that is not what it became. The trouble reportedly started with a request. Harriet, sources say, had hoped to wear a piece from the royal collection on her wedding day, a gesture that would have connected her, even briefly, to the family she was marrying into. It would not have been unprecedented. Royal brides on the edges of the family have worn borrowed pieces before. Quiet nods of inclusion that cost the monarchy nothing and mean everything to the people receiving them. But according to insiders, Camilla said no. Not just no to one piece. No to any of it, including items long associated with Princess Anne, the groom's own mother. One source close to the situation described the disagreement as a huge and heated talking point in the days before the ceremony, the kind of quiet argument that never reaches the public but reshapes an entire family behind the scenes. William, according to people familiar with his thinking, believed Harriet should have been given the choice, not because of tradition, but because of what refusing that choice would say. And when Camilla reportedly refused to move on the matter, insiders say something in William shifted permanently. He did not shout. He did not make a scene. That has never been how he operates, even in private. But according to one insider, William was furious, and the fury was not really about a tiara at all. It was about a pattern he believed he was finally seeing clearly for the first time. To understand why a single wedding, a single tiara, and a single housing report could carry so much weight, you have to step back from that one afternoon in Gloucestershire and look at the picture insiders say has been forming for years. Because according to those close to the family, none of this was really about jewelry or rent or seating arrangements at a cousin's wedding. It was about a vision, one that William has reportedly been carrying since long before he ever expected to need it this soon. Royal biographer Russell Myers, in his book Examining the Modern Monarchy, describes conversations with a former courtier who watched William grow up during a period defined by uncertainty, a childhood shaped by public scrutiny, family fracture, and loss on a scale most people never have to comprehend. According to that account, those years did not simply shape William's personality. They reportedly shaped his entire philosophy of what the crown should become. According to Myers, William and Catherine share what is described as a totally different vision for the monarchy, one built around accountability, one meant to speak to younger generations both at home and abroad. The former courtier is quoted describing their approach in a way that sounds almost businesslike for an institution built on centuries of tradition. Get the family home life right first, then build the public profile around it. A complete reversal, according to that account, of how the monarchy has traditionally operated for generations. It is a striking claim, not because it is scandalous, but because of what it implies. If true, it means William has not been reacting to each individual controversy as it happens. The jewelry dispute, the housing report, the quiet distance kept from Beatrice and Eugenie. According to this account, these are not isolated incidents. They are, insiders suggest, small visible fragments of a much larger structure William has reportedly been building in private for years, one piece at a time, waiting only for the moment he would have the authority to use it. That moment, according to multiple sources, may be arriving far sooner than anyone expected. With King Charles continuing to manage his own health, William has already been stepping into a heavier share of institutional responsibility, and with that shift has come, according to insiders, the early signs of exactly the kind of monarchy he intends to build. William has never been shy about confirming at least part of this directly. In a real, on-record conversation with actor Eugene Levy, William was asked about the future weighing on him, and his answer was simple, direct, and now widely quoted by royal commentators, trying to understand where this is all heading. "Change is on my agenda," he said. 4 words, spoken almost in passing, that insiders now describe as a genuine window into how seriously he takes the idea of reform. And according to reporting, William is not simply talking about change from a distance. He is reportedly living it. While questions continue to swirl around Beatrice and Eugenie's below-market rent, the Wales family's own residence tells a very different story. Their home at Forest Lodge in Windsor, described in multiple reports as their long-term forever home, is reportedly rented at full market value, with a lease containing strict language prohibiting any form of subletting.
William and Catherine shine. They know how to get the spotlight because they are real royalty. It is an event every time they show up, and over the weekend, they just happen to have one of their most knockout weekends ever.
No discounted rate, no quiet arrangement paid for by someone else's household budget, just a straightforward lease, priced the way any other family in the country would be expected to pay. If the reporting is accurate, that detail matters enormously to this story, because it removes the possibility that William's stance is simply about resentment or personal rivalry. According to insiders, it appears to reflect something closer to principle, a belief that if the monarchy is going to justify its place in modern Britain, it has to be able to show the public that the same rules apply to everyone standing beneath the crown, regardless of how close their bloodline runs. That principle, according to sources, extends well beyond real estate. Reports have also suggested that William has specific people in mind when he thinks about who should remain closely tied to official royal life once he is in a position to decide. According to those familiar with his thinking, these are not framed as personal grievances, but as long-term institutional planning, decisions about who continues to represent the crown publicly and who does not. No individuals have been officially named in connection with these claims, and no palace has confirmed any list, plan, or timeline. But the direction being described is consistent with everything else reported so far. A monarchy, according to insiders, that William intends to make smaller, sharper, and far more accountable than the one he is set to inherit. Not everyone believes that vision is without risk, because for every insider describing William's plan as overdue reform, there are royal commentators warning that the cost of that reform could be higher than it appears on paper. Robert Jobson, a respected and long-standing royal expert, has publicly cautioned that William's approach carries real danger if handled without care. Speaking about the Wales family's move to their permanent Windsor residence, combined with William's broader plans to reduce the number of working royals, Jobson warned that the future king risks becoming, in his words, less connected to the people. His concern is not about ambition, it is about balance. Jobson has stated plainly that the role of monarch is one where duty has to come first, and that there is no version of the crown that can function as what he calls a part-time monarchy. According to Jobson, if William pulls back too far, both physically into a private estate and institutionally by narrowing the working family down to only its closest members, he risks trading the very visibility and accessibility that has made him one of the most popular figures in the family to begin with. It is a warning worth sitting with, because it reframes everything this story has shown so far. William's reported moves are not being described, even by skeptics, as reckless or cruel. They are being described as a genuine philosophical shift, one supported by real financial evidence, real public frustration over royal privilege, and real statements from William himself. But according to people who study the institution closely, even a correct idea carried out with too much distance and too little warmth can end up costing exactly the kind of public trust it was meant to protect. If this is starting to feel less like simple palace gossip and more like a genuine turning point for one of the world's oldest institutions, that reaction is exactly why this channel exists. Stories like this deserve more than a headline and a guess. They deserve the full picture, laid out carefully, with nothing skipped and nothing exaggerated. If you want to be here when the next piece of this story breaks, make sure you are subscribed right now, because according to sources close to the palace, this is far from finished. Because what remains unresolved is not simply who keeps their housing or who gets invited to which balcony appearance. It is something much larger. Whether William can actually deliver the modern, accountable monarchy he has reportedly been building toward his entire adult life, without losing the public warmth that made people trust him in the first place. Whether Charles, weighed down by his own health and by decades of trying to hold this family together, will resist his son's growing influence, or simply let it happen. And whether the people standing closest to the old version of this institution, Camilla, Beatrice, Eugenie, and others still unnamed, will find any place left for themselves inside the monarchy William is quietly, deliberately building around them. The wedding went ahead as planned. Harriet, in the end, chose to wear a headpiece designed by Pragnell, the same jeweler behind her engagement ring, a decision one insider called an act of diplomacy rather than defeat. She did not want her wedding day defined by a dispute that was never truly hers to begin with. But the guests in that room noticed something, even without knowing the details. One person present described the atmosphere as tense enough to cut with a knife, saying that despite remaining outwardly cordial, William and Camilla barely acknowledged each other throughout the entire event. A wedding meant to bring the family closer together had instead exposed, in one quiet afternoon, exactly how far apart two of its most powerful figures had grown. If you have ever watched a family gathering where everyone is smiling but no one is speaking, you already understand the kind of tension being described here. And if this is the sort of story that pulls you in, the kind built on real reporting and real stakes rather than exaggeration, make sure you are subscribed. Because what allegedly happened after that wedding is where this story turns from a disagreement into something much bigger. Because according to sources close to the family, the jewelry was never really the issue. It was the moment that finally gave a name to a conflict that had been building for years. One insiders now describe as a genuine and ongoing power struggle over the future direction of the monarchy itself. The most striking claim to emerge from that period did not concern jewelry at all. It concerned something far heavier. According to reports, Camilla has privately accused William of treating his own father's reign as little more than a formality, a placeholder existing only until the crown passes to him. It is an extraordinary accusation, if true, not because it is dramatic, but because of what it reveals about how deep this rift is believed to run. This is not, according to the reporting, a disagreement about wedding etiquette or family optics. It is, insiders suggest, a disagreement about authority itself, about who is really shaping the monarchy's decisions while Charles remains on the throne. Sources close to William reportedly reject that characterization entirely. According to those same reports, the Prince of Wales believes he has not only the right, but the responsibility to lead and to correct mistakes where he sees them, given his position as heir and future monarch. It is a belief that, whether one agrees with it or not, explains a great deal about how William has reportedly begun to conduct himself behind palace walls. Royal commentators have long framed William as a modernizing figure, someone focused on reform, on trimming the monarchy down to something leaner and more disciplined for the world it now exists in. Camilla, by contrast, has often been associated with continuity, with protecting the traditions and the people already inside the fold, including, of course, her own family. Those two visions were always going to collide eventually. According to insiders, the wedding simply forced the collision into the open sooner than anyone expected. There is also the matter of timing, which sources say has not gone unnoticed inside the palace. This tension comes during a period when King Charles continues to manage his own health, a period defined by caution, by reduced public appearances, by a family trying to project stability even as questions about the future grow louder by the month. Royal broadcaster Ian Pelham Turner has previously claimed that William held concerns about his father and Camilla undertaking certain demanding public engagements during this time, worried about the strain such trips could place on the king. Buckingham Palace has never addressed those claims directly, but taken together, insiders suggest a picture of a Prince of Wales who is no longer simply waiting his turn, a man who, according to sources, believes the moment has already arrived for him to start shaping decisions rather than deferring to them. And if that is true, it raises an uncomfortable question for everyone still inside that palace. If William is already acting like the direction of the monarchy is his to decide, what does that mean for everyone standing in his way? Because according to further reporting, the jewelry dispute and the accusations about Charles's reign were not the only signs of a deeper shift taking place. There are also claims, still unconfirmed by the palace, that William has been quietly reshaping who benefits from royal life at all. Reports have circulated, suggesting William has set his sights on reducing the privileges enjoyed by more peripheral members of the family, individuals who carry royal connections without official royal duties. Sources describe growing unease among those figures, a sense that the ground beneath them is shifting in ways they cannot fully see or control. None of these claims have been confirmed publicly. No palace statement has addressed them, but the pattern insiders are describing is consistent. A future king, reportedly moving to consolidate the direction of the institution years before he is even due to inherit it, and a stepmother who believes she is watching her own influence and her family's place within the monarchy being quietly dismantled around her. It is worth remembering that Camilla's journey into this family was never simple. It took years, decades even, of careful public rehabilitation before she was accepted by a country that once viewed her with open hostility. According to biographer accounts, she reportedly held early doubts about Kate Middleton herself, once seen by some in her circle as not aristocratic enough for a future king, a claim that has resurfaced repeatedly over the years as evidence of long-standing friction between the two women who now sit closest to the crown. If those old tensions never fully disappeared, and if this wedding truly was the moment they resurfaced in full, then what played out in that Gloucestershire reception hall may end up being remembered as something far more significant than a disagreement over borrowed jewelry. It may be remembered as the moment the balance of power inside the modern monarchy became impossible to ignore. There is also the matter of optics, something the royal family has always understood better than almost any institution in the world. Just weeks after the jewelry dispute, King Charles and Camilla faced fresh criticism for leaving Peter and Harriet's wedding early, departing before the reception had properly begun in order to attend one of Britain's most prestigious horse racing events. One source close to the situation noted that while some would understand the king honoring long-standing commitments, others would inevitably see it as an unusual decision to leave a close family wedding so quickly. Another added that the optics were difficult because weddings are rare family milestones, and when senior royals leave before the celebrations are fully underway, it naturally attracts attention and sparks debate about priorities. To some observers, that early exit was simply scheduling. To others, particularly those already primed by the jewelry controversy, it read as something else entirely. One more small sign of a family increasingly divided, not just by opinion, but by where its loyalties truly lie. Behind everything this story has uncovered, the jewelry dispute, the housing report, the quiet distance kept from cousins at a family wedding, there is one fact that explains why all of it is happening now, and not 5 years from now, or 10. King Charles is still living with cancer. Buckingham Palace confirmed the diagnosis in February 2024, an undisclosed form of the disease discovered almost by accident during what was originally meant to be a routine procedure for an unrelated condition. The exact type has never been made public. 2 years on, it still has not been. What the palace has confirmed, carefully and deliberately, is only what it wants the country to know: that the king has responded exceptionally well to treatment, that his care has now moved into what officials describe as a precautionary phase, that his condition continues to be monitored and reviewed. In December, Charles delivered a rare personal video message, recorded at Clarence's house, confirming that his schedule of treatment could finally be reduced heading into the new year. He described the moment as a personal blessing, crediting early diagnosis and what he called effective intervention. It was, by any measure, good news, delivered in the king's own words, on camera, without a single anonymous source or unnamed insider anywhere in sight. But there is something else worth noticing in that same statement, something the palace never actually said. At no point did Buckingham Palace confirm that the king is in remission. Reduced treatment is not the same as an ending. It is caution, not closure. And according to people who have followed his health closely since the diagnosis first became public, that distinction matters enormously to everything happening around him right now. Because whatever is or is not happening inside King Charles's body, the institution around him has to keep functioning regardless. A monarchy cannot simply pause while its head recovers. It has to keep making decisions, keep appearing in public, keep reassuring a country that continuity is not in question. And according to royal commentators, that pressure has fallen increasingly onto one person. Not Camilla, not the king's closest advisors, William. One royal biographer, who has observed Charles closely since he took the throne, has described him as, in many ways, the happiest he has ever been in the role, even while continuing treatment. It is an important detail, because it complicates any simple narrative of a fragile king fading quietly into the background. Charles has continued hosting state visits. He has continued his full public schedule. He has spoken openly, repeatedly, about his own diagnosis, specifically to help others facing the same fear. Whatever is happening privately, publicly, he has chosen visibility over retreat. And yet, alongside that determined public presence, something else has been quietly happening within his own family. Something far smaller in scale, but according to observers, no less telling. This year, William, Kate, and their 3 children did not attend the royal family's traditional Easter service at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. It marked the second time in recent years the Wales family has skipped the gathering entirely, choosing instead to spend the holiday privately at their Norfolk home, away from the rest of the family and away from the cameras. There is no confirmed explanation for the absence. No statement was issued explaining why. But taken alongside everything else this story has uncovered, the jewelry dispute with Camilla, the cold distance from Beatrice and Eugenie, the reported plans to reshape who benefits from royal life once William is king, that empty seat at Windsor takes on a different weight. It becomes one more quiet data point in a much larger pattern insiders have been describing for months. 2 branches of the same family, increasingly operating on separate tracks, coming together publicly only when tradition absolutely requires it. None of this proves a rift. None of it confirms a plan, a plot, or a coup. What it shows, according to the reporting gathered here, is something quieter and, in some ways, more human than any single dramatic confrontation could ever capture. A family navigating illness, succession, ambition, and grief all at the same time, without a script, without certainty, and increasingly without agreement on what the monarchy is even supposed to look like once the crown eventually changes hands. Charles, for his part, appears determined to keep working for as long as his health allows, treating visibility itself as a form of duty. William, according to nearly every source gathered across this story, appears equally determined to start shaping the institution's future now, rather than waiting for a title to make that authority official. And somewhere between those 2 approaches sits everyone else. Camilla, Beatrice, Eugenie, and a public watching closely, trying to figure out which version of this family is the one that will actually still be standing when the next chapter finally begins. If this story has shown you anything, it is that the modern monarchy is not being reshaped through announcements or scandals. It is being reshaped quietly. One wedding, one report, one empty chair at a holiday service at a time. And if you want to be here when the next piece of it comes to light, This is exactly the kind of story this channel is built to follow, closely, carefully, and honestly. Make sure you are subscribed, because King Charles has not confirmed remission, William has not confirmed his plans, and until either of them does, this story is far from finished. What makes this story so difficult to look away from is not a single dramatic confrontation. There was no scene, no public outburst, nothing loud enough to make headlines on its own. What insiders describe instead is something quieter and, in its own way, far more unsettling. A slow, deliberate cooling between two of the most powerful people in the modern monarchy, playing out through small refusals, careful silences, and decisions made without explanation. If this is a genuine power struggle, and sources increasingly suggest that it is, then it is one being fought almost entirely without words. No declarations, no confrontations caught on camera. Just distance, growing wider with every reported incident, until even the guests at a family wedding could feel it without being told why. For William, the stakes reportedly go beyond personal pride. According to people who know him, he has spent years building a public identity distinct from the rest of his family, one defined by discipline, restraint, and a clear sense of where he believes the monarchy needs to go. If Camilla is, as insiders claim, resisting that direction at every turn, then this is no longer simply a family disagreement. It becomes, in William's eyes, a test of whether he is truly in control of the institution he will one day inherit, or whether that control is still being quietly contested behind palace doors. For Camilla, the stakes may be even higher. Her position inside this family was never guaranteed. It was earned, slowly and carefully, over more than 2 decades of public patience. If sources are right, and William truly is moving to limit her influence, or the involvement of those closest to her, then what is being threatened is not simply a seat at family events. It is the legitimacy she fought so long to secure. None of these claims have been confirmed by Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace. No member of the royal family has spoken publicly about any of it. What exists right now is a collection of reported details, insider accounts, and a wedding that, on the surface, looked like nothing more than a quiet family celebration. But taken together, those details describe a monarchy at a genuine crossroads, caught between a king managing his health, a queen consort defending the family and position she built for herself, and a Prince of Wales who, according to nearly everyone speaking about this story, is no longer content to simply wait his turn. Whatever the truth turns out to be, one thing about this story is already clear. The version of the royal family the public has been shown for years, calm, unified, carefully composed, is reportedly far more fractured behind the scenes than most people realize. If this story mattered to you, if you found yourself leaning in as these details unfolded, that reaction is exactly why this channel exists. To take stories like this and lay them out properly, without exaggeration, without noise, just the details that matter. Make sure you are subscribed, because reporting continues to emerge, and there is one specific detail involving what William is reportedly planning next for 2 other senior members of this family that has not been fully explained yet. That story is coming very soon, and it may end up being the moment this entire power struggle finally becomes impossible for the palace to keep quiet.